Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with some of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast comes from a recent Zoom meeting of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This discussion is led by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
Welcome everyone to this September 2024 meeting of the AIAP, and we're talking today about copyright and licensing. And I'd like to welcome everybody that's on this call. I'm happy to welcome Awana from Pixie, who's also joining us, who is here to answer any questions from an expert point of view. And so thank you for joining us. And I'm sure we'll have other people joining us as the meeting progresses. But at the outset here, Barry, you have a question, and I just wanted to get to you right away.
My question was about copyright registration and how that would or would not impact how Pixie operates.
So copyright registrations are really helpful to have when dealing with image infringement. The way we operate right now is we have a two-track system for resolving cases. So cases either get handled in-house through our licensing case management team, or they can get escalated to our legal partners. We have legal partners in over 20 countries where our jurisdictions are, but in the United States, if we are escalating a case to legal, it does require a copyright registration. Having a copyright registration also gives you the ability to gain statutory damages during an infringement claim if the registration is timely. And that gives you a ballpark of, the judges determine it, but it can be anywhere from $750,000 to $150,000. And actually, just this year in the US, there was a case that got awarded over $6 million, and it was a real estate photographer who won this, and it was through statutory damages. So having the copyright registration opens you up for us to be able to escalate it to a legal partner in the first place. It gets it resolved faster as well, oftentimes, because it gives more legitimacy to your claim. The infringer has less cause to try to get out of fighting the infringement.
How about the have you all engaged with the Copyright Claims Board, the CCB?
We have not directly, no.
Okay.
Initially, we did work on before the Copyright Board was created, we did work on getting some data and some statistics together for the ASMP, who then lobbied to create it, but we haven't been involved in any claims. Photographers can go straight to the small claims board there.
Yep. You don't need a lawyer to engage with them.
Exactly.
I've never done that. Have you done that, Barry? Or?
I haven't done it. It's this is a deep well. I don't want to hijack this Zoom here. It's a kind of small claims court for infringements where you can ask up to about $30,000. Was set up by the Copyright Office. They're commissioners. It's all virtual. You can have a lawyer, but you can also do it without a lawyer. It's a much less expensive and complicated process than going to federal court, but there's also limits to it in terms of financial compensation. Let's put it that way, should you win. And people who you are essentially suing can opt out of the process. So it's got a lot of differences, but it is so many infringements are not at the high end in terms of what compensation would be, either for punitive damages or just resolving a license dispute. And it's not just for photographers either, but it seems like photographers are mostly the people that are using it. And it was a 14-year process to get it passed by Congress, and it happened in 2020. It was kind of a miracle. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've I've heard about it, read about it, but never used it, and don't know anyone who has. So It's still kind of a mystery
It's
to me.
very new.
Yeah. But I've been involved with Pixie for a couple years now, probably almost 3 years, and that's how I've been most comfortable handling things like that.
Yeah.
And Christopher, you were saying that there is no registration requirement in Canada.
Let's just say that I'm ignorant of that. In fact, that was going to be one of my questions to Anana, was, clearly you operate in Canada,
Yes.
but do the same rules apply? Because I was
No.
under the impression that the law is pretty flatlined, that creator retains copyright unless otherwise both parties agreeing in writing.
Yes, that's correct. So that's globally understood from that perspective. It's whoever presses the shutter button at the time of the capture is the owner of the image, unless there is an agreement. So, for example, if it's work for hire and a company or a magazine hires you to shoot for them and then they own it. So you are the copyright owner. What happens in the US with the USCO is basically you're just registering your right to that image with a government body, which gives your right more legitimacy. So it doesn't mean that if it's not registered that you aren't the copyright owner or that it isn't your image. It just means that you're registering that it is your image with a US body of government. There is a copyright registration process in Canada. It's not as popular. It's a lot more new. I think it came in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, but it's not a requirement when you're pursuing infringements.
One question that comes up a lot is the difference between an unregistered and a registered image as to how that can be pursued and what the possible outcomes are. I mean, Awana, can you maybe just kind of speak to that as far as the US goes? If I've got an unregistered infringement as opposed to a registered infringement, and how that can be handled and what the differences are for recovery.
Sure. So when you're submitting a case to us, we do ask whether an image is registered or unregistered. If it's unregistered, it goes automatically to our in-house licensing team to be handled, where they assess the value of the infringement. So we have several ways in terms of pricing an image. The first baseline that we use is your pricing as a photographer for a 1-year license of your image. And then we take into account who the infringer is, their financials, how long the image has been used, what the usage is, if it's just online, if it's online and in print, or if it's social media or multiple places. And then we get our pricing figure around that. If it's something that is a bigger infringement. So, for example, we had a photographer who came to us with an infringement where Netflix had used his image. In that case, given that the infringer was larger and the scope in which his image was used was so vast and it went out so many places, we recommended that gets escalated to legal. In order for it to go to legal, it needed a copyright registration. He didn't have one at the time, but it's something that we were able to do during the course of the infringement. And the US law specifies that if your copyright registration is timely, then you can also, on top of the infringement, get statutory damages. So for it to be timely, the registration has to be made with the USCO office within the first 3 months that the image is published online or before the image was infringed by the infringer. The copyright registration also helps increase the value that we can ask for and also ultimately increase the value of your work, because if we're able to recover a larger amount for you as a settlement, that work now has a higher price to it than it ever did before. So we basically get precedent for a higher price for the work and we can increase the value of your portfolio that way.
I just quickly, the Copyright Claims Board will only work with intellectual property that has been registered.
So that's a prerequisite to even opening a case there. Then
they will let you can start the case and then you can go back and register it either as unpublished or published, as the case may be.
It works
Okay.
the same way when you're working with a lawyer too.
All right.
Yeah, and there are differences in we're not going to talk about registration process, but there are differences in how you register unpublished and published images.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, it's a really ugly website. They're trying to fix it, but it does work and it works well.
One question I hear from people who are using Pixie and wanting you address this to me in an email was the amount of time that it takes. And can you maybe just talk about why it takes sometimes it takes a long time?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally the process can take between 3 months to 12 months. It is possible to have something resolve faster. We've had things resolve within 2 weeks. And we've had things resolve slower. Part of it is the infringer's willingness to cooperate in the process. So we have a multi-faceted approach. So we send letter mails, we send emails, we have phone calls to try to approach the infringer to initiate negotiation. And that's when we're dealing internally through our licensing program. And what can happen is that they could be avoiding communicating back. So in that timeline, it might seem like it's taking a lot longer, but we're still in the background trying to actively connect with them and try to start negotiations. If it's escalated to a lawyer, it could take longer, it could take less time. Again, that depends on the caseload that the lawyers got on the go, and also if it's going to court, if it's getting escalated into the process of court, as well as whether or not we have the copyright registration. That'll take some time. We have to do that, wait for it to come back before we can start escalating into the court system. So it varies on the infringement, and it also varies on the infringer to beyond them negotiating with us and not being in contact with us. Once we do start negotiation, the bigger the infringer is, the longer it takes, because things have to go back and forth with their legal team. Everyone's got to review the contracts and sign before anything goes through with it. So, for example, when you're dealing with somebody like Netflix, if we're sending a final negotiated agreement, somebody on their team has to sit and read it and approve it before they sign it and they make the payment. So these things can all feel very drawn out sometimes, but we're always working on the back end to try to get a positive outcome for photographers.
What if somebody just ignores you completely and you're not getting a response from them?
In that case, we would try to escalate if the case meets the criteria for being escalated to legal.
And what would the criteria be for that generally?
The infringer and the copyright registration, or our ability to register a copyright.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about just the starting point of this? You know, a photographer has a back catalog of stuff, and would like to see if that's being abused elsewhere.
Yes.
Does the photographer present to you the entire catalog and you take it from there, or is it what the photographer selects specific images? You know, how does that work?
It is dependent on the kind of workflow that you're looking for. So our accounts start for monitoring up to 500 images for free. If it's a catalog of older images that have been around for a longer time, it's better to start with less, because likely you're going to have a lot of results to review, so you don't want to be overwhelmed. But you ultimately choose however many images you want monitored. You upload them into your Pixie account, and then we start to search the internet to see where we're finding them, and we deliver those results as matches. And once your matches come in, typically, we offer our users the ability to have somebody on our team sit and curate them. So we look through them based off of your licensing history. We'll import a whitelist into your account, and we'll sit and we'll put together a list of the ones that are viable for case submission, and we'll send those to you. You would then be able to look through them and verify based off of your licenses or just your knowledge of who you've sold your images to, whether it's authorized or unauthorized. And then from there, we're able to pursue cases. But ultimately, you determine if you want to put all your images on there and see all your results now, or if you just want to start in smaller batches and see less results and just work through them until you're more comfortable.
Okay, and how about the reach? The reach of that both. I mean, technically, you say you search the internet,
Yeah.
but but is that worldwide, every country? And also, does that mean also that the legal side of it is worldwide? Because surely some countries will not be compliant with copyright.
You're right. Yeah. So in our monitoring, we do have a global reach. So we search the entire public internet. So if it's out there, we'll find it. Our only limitation is if it's, for example, on a private Facebook account, that somebody, or like a private Instagram account, that's not something we can find. Or if it's behind paywalls, sometimes some newspapers have paywalls where you have to be subscribed to be able to access a article. So in situations like that, we might not be able to find the image results. But if someone's using your image in Vanuatu, for example, we'll find it and we'll be able to show it to you as long as it's online. If it's not online and it's on a board or a billboard or on a t-shirt in a store, we're not going to find it unless somebody's published a picture of that online, and then we can kind of track it down that way. And then in terms of our reach, we've kind of built an entire ecosystem around being able to take action. So the first course of action is always submitting a case to us. In order for us to take it on as a case, it's got to be a usage that is commercial, organizational, or editorial. So commercial would be like the Netflix example, for example. Editorial is like a newspaper, let's say the Toronto Star, something like that. And it's got to be within one of our supported countries. We operate in over 20 countries, and then we can take on the case. If a case is not an option, then we have something available for our users called our takedown notice tool. It's self-service. That's available globally. So you can send a takedown notice and it goes to both the domain host and the website. And in 35 different countries, we've actually partnered with law firms in those countries to build out the letter so that it's to the letter of the law of that country. And we also have them available in 14 different languages. So if you are sending a takedown notice, for example, in China, it's going to be in Mandarin and according to their rules, not a DMCA letter that somebody in the States would be getting. And that's also an option if a business is not using your image. So let's say in Canada, you found an individual using your image and they're selling something on Etsy, you're able to send a takedown notice.
Yeah, I've just started using the takedown notices, and they are very effective. And it's, non-commercial kinds of things, but it was for the ones I sent out were for website or individuals who are using my images for some radical kinds of ideas and that I didn't agree with politically or socially or otherwise. And so I sent takedown notices, and those are very effective. I would just want to back up a little bit as far as I submitted a fairly large archive to Pixie when I first started out. And as I mentioned before we went on air, I ended up with about 10,000 matches right off the bat. And it was fairly overwhelming. And I wouldn't recommend that necessarily.
I remember the first time we looked at your account, it was really easy to flag just 100 off the bat.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it as I was flagging. I was like, is this for real? Did this company actually use his image?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been astonishing.
Yeah.
And, the recoveries that you've obtained have been really surprising.
Our team is doing some really good work. As sometimes we're even outpacing some legal partners right now. If we look at our data of what we've been recovering within our licensing team, specifically in the US, in the past 5 years, it's increased 366% on average per recovery based off where we were 5 years ago. So they're doing a really good job.
Prior to prior to using Pixie services, and Pixie's not here because we endorse Pixie necessarily, but because most of us are using Pixie is why we've invited or wanted to participate on this. But prior to me using Pixie, I used individual law firms around the United States to pursue things with not great success. And so, you know, there are services out there who do similar things to what Pixie does. It's just that Pixie is the one that I've landed on, and many of others here in the organization have landed on as well. And very happy with what's gone on here, but certainly not the only option for pursuing copyright infringements.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that came up recently was about being logged in, and something that sets us apart is that users aren't logged in. So if we're monitoring your images and we're showing you results, a user's never obligated to give us an infringement. They can take it to their own legal partner, or they can handle it themselves if they want to.
And I wasn't clear on that, honestly, when I signed up either. I thought there was some obligation if you scanned it and found it that I was obligated to use you, and so that was helpful to understand that and know that there was, you know, if I chose to go a different avenue for pursuing that infringement, I certainly could. But the reach of the scan is what's been kind of remarkable. I have used another company that does scanning, and their reach was only a fraction of what you've been able to return. So it's kind of surprising to me what you're finding.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's not unusual for any photo, legal or otherwise, legally used or otherwise, to be modified. Is there a way to talk about the break point at which you can still recognize the photo? Say it's in an ad. I mean, I think if it's in an ad and there's type over it, that seems like it wouldn't. I think that doesn't affect things. But there's other kinds of all kinds of strange modifications that people will do.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So our monitoring service works on a similarity score. When you import an image into our account, what we do is something called fingerprinting, which is basically mapping the image pixel by pixel. And when our crawling technology is looking for images online, it's looking for that pixel configuration. And we're delivering back matches from 100% less. So we might find something that, let's say, is like a 1% match based off of your pixel configuration. We obviously wouldn't show you that because it's too low, and we have a threshold of percentage that we show in accounts. I think right now it's set to 45, if I'm not mistaken, and that would be marked as a low accuracy result. We do that specifically so we can show modification to images. So we've been able to catch, for example, in pictures of interiors, we've been able to find an interior where the flooring's been changed rather than a concrete floor, hardwood shows up in the picture, or like pillows on sofas are different. If picture frame, the picture in the picture frame has been altered, if the image has been taken and put on a t-shirt, we've been able to find things like that, but we just rate the similarity as low, medium, or high. So when you're going through your account, if you don't want to see some of those lower accuracy results, because what might happen is we may be delivering false positives, meaning that they look similar but are not. So you can strictly look at only high accuracy because we have filters that you can use to be able to review things. But we do find modified images quite well, actually.
Along those lines, Barry, one of the things that they've been finding for me is where manufacturers are taking an interior and they're changing out like the picture on the wall, or they're changing out light fixtures in the room.
Light fixtures, yeah.
Yeah, that happens. I've got quite a few of those that they found. Also, some of the low accuracy matches that they presented have been where the image has been flopped. And so the flopped image shows up, and you know, somebody's thought that, well, I'll just flop this image and then they won't see it as an infringement, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I've had several where the image has just been flopped and then cropped slightly, so it does look like a different image. I'm not sure I would have caught it, but
And I assume a screen grab is going to come up with the same level of accuracy, right? I mean, if it's a screenshot rather,
If you're
rather,
uploading a screenshot rather than the image.
yeah.
We do have a minimum that whatever you're uploading has a minimum of 1,000 pixels on either length or width. Just the longest end's got to have a minimum of 1,000 pixels so that we're able to.
Okay. I meant
Uh,
the infringed image. So yeah, the infringed image could easily be less
yes,
than that as a screenshot. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. Wow. Well, it makes me wish I had better math skills. But
and I've had one case presented to me recently where it was all screenshots. They'd gone to a preview gallery that I'd posted, and they had screenshot everything in the preview gallery. And then one that was just this week that came in, that was somebody had screenshot MLS listings, and that was, and then they had posted those on a Facebook page, all those, and they still had the ML. Well, you know, that's another story entirely, but they still had the MLS watermark on it in the corner. So let me ask you one about recovery and how much money you take when, you know, and how that's all split and what it costs and those kinds of things. In, you know, kind of as an industry rule of thumb, and then maybe specifically for Pixie.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we work is on a no win, no fee basis. And that's in all our global markets, which is quite a feat because a lot of lawyers outside of the US don't typically work on contingency. But we've been able to negotiate such plans. It's a 50-50 split if we are successful. If it does get escalated to legal, it can vary. Sometimes it's a 50-50 split gross, and sometimes it's a 50-50 split net. Net means the lawyer takes their cut first, and whatever is left over, we split 50-50. Gross means that it's just a straight 50-50, and the lawyer gets paid out of our fee. But that gets explained if we are escalating to a legal partner. That gets broken down at that time when we do decide to escalate. We let you know, and there's an agreement that the legal partner will send over for you to review, so you get an understanding of their fee structure. And the only other fee that is involved potentially to consider is a cancellation fee. So if we've started working on a case for you and down the line you've decided that you don't want to pursue it anymore, or you want to take it somewhere else, then there is a $200 fee to cancel it, just to recover the amount of work we've put in to date for it.
Okay. Yeah, and I got one of those service agreements from a law firm in the UK yesterday, which was kind of what you described there, where it's you know, explaining their fees and how that's going
Yeah,
to work as one of your legal partners. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
no problem. Our service kind of came up. So we've been around since 2014, 10 years now. And it was something that came up out of a photographer's need ultimately. And a photographer in a similar industry like yours, he was having trouble with construction companies using his images. And he tried to reach out to try to recover licensing fees for the images that were being used. And it just wasn't successful. But once he started going this avenue, it became a lot more successful, and he's built it out so that he can share it with photographers just globally. You know, a lot of our team members are actually photographers as well, or on the side, hobby photographers.
Yeah, I know your legal partner, David Deal, was a successful photographer before he decided to become an attorney.
Yeah.
So,
And I know you work closely with Mandy, and
yeah.
she used to be a wedding photographer back when she was
Mhm.
living in New York. And Barbara, head of case management, she's a photographer as well.
Mhm.
there are a lot of attorneys who used to be photographers. I choose not to dwell too much on that for obvious reasons.
I don't know really how you make the jump from photographer to lawyer myself, but
Well, I think the inspiration is looking at your bank account, probably.
Yeah, maybe so. That
Yeah.
might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Um,
What do I know?
I wanted to kind of touch on licensing here for just a minute, and one of the questions that came up from actually a member that's not on the call today was about multi-party licensing and how that's presented and how we implement that. And I'm just wondering, are all of us here doing multi-party licensing? Kind of at the front end of a project, and how does that get implemented when you do that? Anybody want to comment on that?
I actually have it built into my contract that way.
Okay.
So that when the contract's signed with the original client, we know who the sub parties are going to be. And then
Oh,
I kind of use it as a cost sharing format as well.
okay.
I convince them that, if you get all these people on board and this is what their licenses are going to cost at the upfront side of it. At the end of the day, I've had a couple clients that actually got down to where they were paying nothing and everybody else, the subcontractors, contractors, different parties involved, were paying all of it for them.
Okay.
And that's why they like me. They keep me busy.
I think I
So
can
you,
understand that.
so you, that's a different model than
Yeah.
what I use, where everybody gets the same discount, and I see how that would be very attractive to a client.
Yeah, I'm in the Midwest, in the Omaha, Nebraska area, and I think there's 7 guys that work out of here, not just guys, gals that work out of here, pretty fluently. And so to combat some of that, their price models kept going up, and I decided I would try it. A friend of mine in Ohio tried it, and it worked. And I've tried it here, and it's become very successful for me. It's allowed me to actually get more. I guess at the end of the day, I'm making more money and doing less than if I just went out and tried to beat on everybody on the way through the project. So
Yeah, that was my question. Is your net then higher? You're not just splitting out the cost.
no,
You've got a sliding scale where numbers of people involved are paying a certain amount, but your primary client then their cost goes down.
yeah. So what I do is let's say that basically I'm going to do a job for $1,000, and we'll just use that. It's easy numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want one of their partners, whether it be the contractor, the interior designer, whatever, if they want a set of images at that time, their set cost is going to be $500. So I'm basically, yeah, I guess you could say I'm sliding it out over the whole thing. But if I have 5 people that come on board that, I've only done, part of the time to go out and make the shoot, part of the time for editing, and the rest of it's all gravy.
So you
Listen,
potentially bill $2,500,
yeah,
where your primary client would have just paid the $1,000
correct.
if you hadn't done that. Okay.
Yep. Yep. And routinely 2,500 is a fairly good number, although I've been hitting in the 3s recently with what's been going on in this area. So
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like when I used to be in the portrait and wedding business. Your first upfront shoot was where you had to basically recover your cost, and then you were selling prints on top of that.
Yeah.
Same kind of philosophy. The more prints you sold, the more money you made. And so, but yeah, it's been working well for me. I'm actually trying not to get too much work. I'm trying to retire, but it's not happening. So
We hear that a lot too.
yeah.
So how do you discover all the other parties? I mean, is that something that your primary client's helping you, putting you in touch with these people, or
Well,
helping you find?
yeah. In all fairness, I have an unfair advantage. So for 22 years, I was the building official for the city of Omaha.
Oh,
So there's not a building in this, the builder, an architect, an engineer, and there's nobody in this town that I don't know.
okay.
And because of that, when I retired from the city and started going back to photography and started doing these, I knew pretty much just by looking at the permits who's on the job. And once the clients figured that out, they're going, oh, yeah, you do know who's on these jobs. And that's how it kind of started. Was, hey, I know that this contractor ABC over here, he's going to want this. He's a great cabinet maker. And so we put it in there and away we go. And it just kind of blossomed from there. Kind of stuck my toe in the Missouri River to see what happened, and it worked.
That's one thing I have trouble with, is finding who all the other parties are.
Yeah.
Sometimes my primary client is not interested in doing that legwork to help me find that out, and it's unless I go and try to find permits and things like that, which takes
Yeah.
a lot of time, it's tough to find that. I wish there was an easier way.
Well, ironically, the city never killed my password on their permit department files. So I have a really easy time getting in on all those, but and they haven't caught on yet. And I've been retired since 2018. So but that helps. And then again, just talking to people, like I said, I know so many of them that they'll talk about they're working on this job, and I'm going, oh, hey, one architectural firm that I do a ton of work with, they're a residential architectural firm. They just automatically tell their subcontractors, hey, we're going to do this shoot, you're in on it. And so I don't even have to do legwork on those, which is really nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, they're selling for you in part because their commission is free photos.
absolutely. And
Right. Yeah.
when you lay it out that way, the more you get, the less you pay is how I tell them, because you're going to split that cost out. And eventually it does. It narrows down to where they're paying really nothing for my services, but yet everybody else is paying it for them.
Wow. I'm gonna have to change my business model.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not. It's not
Start
at all.
slow.
I always lay out the costs ahead of time for people, but and I call it multi-party discounts.
Yeah.
On the front end, and I put that on my estimate that goes out. So I break it down by the numbers of parties and what that's going to cost them. And a lot of times, the primary client will see the incentive there. But the bigger the firm is, the less incentive it is
Yeah.
to try to save. They don't, if it's, I won't mention any names, but if it's a big firm, they just don't seem to care. And so I find out on the back end. But one thing I have done is that I use Pixieset for previews, and and so I'll put a preview gallery together, and I'll send that link to my primary client and say, share this with whoever else was involved with the project, and then I'll wait a week for invoicing, and so the fact that there might be some other parties involved in licensing, and that's worked out really well. I've only been doing that for the last year, and that's actually made a big difference for them to be able to just click that link and see the gallery, and then they opt in. A lot easier.
So the other thing that I typically do with my clients, and mostly because they've known me for so long and trust what I do photographically, that I automatically come back, I'll take their shoot list. And a lot of times they're on site with me, a lot of times they're not. They just depend on what's going on. But I'll take their shoot list and I'll pick out the images that they wanted, plus any that I find that I may have discovered along the way that were more fun. And I'll just edit them and put them out there. And I said, this is, if you wanted 10 images, I got 12 for you. Hey, have a freebie today. I'm already there. So for me, it's just a matter of grabbing that shot and doing it. But it works out really well because I know, let's say that when we start on the job, I have a pretty good idea what they want because I've worked with them so long that I know that they're going to want 12 images of this, this, and this. So I'm going to price them for 12 images. Sorry, my cat decided to show up.
I wonder what that was.
Yeah, my trusty helper over here. She shows up once in a while. But then I'll know I have an idea that that's the only set we're going to have out there. And so the subcontractors get the same set. I'm not dividing up images or letting them pick at that point. I'm cheating a little bit on that end.
Well, it never hurts to over deliver.
No,
especially if there's not much pain involved on our end. It's a nice thing to do. People love it. Why wouldn't they?
Well, I'm kind of a detail freak. I grew up in the construction industry and have an architecture background as well.
I was a carpenter for 20 years.
There you go. See, so there's details that we see that, and I call that good architectural photographers that see these details. Because when you look at a room and okay, great, nice cabinet. Oh, wait a minute. What's that detail on that cabinet over there? And you go over and you open a door and it's like, also there's a pull-out wall for spices or whatever. And it's just, if you make that part of the image, the cabinet maker is like drooling all over himself. And generally what I find when they do that is they call me back and ask me if they can get prints of it. So we say, oh yeah, you bet we can get you a print of that. How big do you want it? And when do you want it delivered? So it's kind of fun. And so for that, I throw a lot of details in that normally, people kind of just overlook. I find it funny that architects, they drew something on paper, which we can always build that. You know that. Not really, but they have a detail. Almost every architect has some little detail that they put into every project they do. And for me, it's fun. It's like, where's Waldo? I go around and find that little detail in their project on every one I do. I will photograph it. I make that a cover photo for the images I deliver to them. And they're like, wow, how'd you find that? Well, it was just there. So I probably have way too much fun when I do this, honestly.
Yeah, why should we have fun when we're working? I just don't
Exactly.
understand.
It's, 22 years in city government, I decided I'm going to have fun on my next job. So
I think you always got to have fun. I mean,
Yes.
this is, every job is creative in one way or another, every profession. But my God, we're photographers, and it's about access, and you're there. Why shouldn't, if you have the time, why not?
Well, and I don't typically look like this, but I was out doing a drone job on a construction site this morning, so I'm not exactly dressed for the occasion, but I haven't made one of these Zoom meetings yet, and I said today I'm going to. I just don't want to take this time
to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So before we end, I do have a question about Pixie. So if let's say you've got an image that has a license attached to it, the license has been infringed by whoever, doesn't matter. Then once an agreement is made with the infringer, what license gets attached to that? Do we send over our standard license and then you forward that on for signature, or how does it work?
That's a good question. So when we are negotiating this, we're negotiating, and it's two-part, is ultimately a retroactive license. So if someone's been using your image for a year or 6 months or 5 years, what we're negotiating is those past 5 years or 6 months or 1 year. The license is actually through Pixie, and it's something that we generate that they sign off on, but we do also have the opportunity to negotiate a continued use license, usually for 1 year, if that is something that you opt into. So during the case submission form process, there will be a question that says, do you want to give this infringer access to continued use license? And you're welcome to opt into it. Some photographers have actually gotten clients that way, just opting, because it happens when people say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I'd be happy to pay for it. I want to continue using it. I'll pay for using it going forward. And then photographers get new clients that way. We've actually had infringers turn around and come to us as clients saying, we didn't realize that was wrong, but we have our own images and we don't know where those are ending up. We should be doing this for our own service.
But
the contract and the language is already preset by us, and we'll go ahead and take care of all of that. So you just submit it to us. The initial work that you put in is upfront, just setting up the case submission form.
So I have different kinds of licensing for architects, interior designers. I don't put a time limit on it. I never have. For advertising and editorial, obviously that's different. And that has a time limit.
Yeah.
So that can be incorporated into the license that Pixie provides the infringer.
For continued use, if that's something that you'd like, then yes. But again, if we're just negotiating an infringement, it's for the past dates.
Oh,
so
no, that's sure.
Yeah.
But going forward, if it's an architect, I would normally license it, even an infringer,
Yeah. Ultimately, what they're meant to do is pay for the time they used it and remove the image going forward, unless they specify that they want to continue to keep using the image,
Right.
in which case the continued use license come into play. And at that point, you can decide to negotiate that on your own with them, or do it through our continued use process.
All right.
Yeah, I had a case similar to that where it was a window company that paid an infringement settlement as well as a continued license.
Well, that's a commercial. commercial
National Window
use, yeah.
Company paying for advertising. Yeah.
Yeah, they can afford it.
Yeah.
And I think, commercial licensees expect time limits. That's just normal.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awana, before we get close to wrapping up here, as far as licenses, are there some ideas or some advice that you give as far as what we ought to have in our license? Anything that should be there or shouldn't be there, maybe, as far as licensing the license that we present to clients?
I think just spelling out the terms carefully is important, and just not even so much for the clients to understand, but all just for you to know. We've worked with photographers where they were sharing images without any sort of licenses. And then there was a lot of gray area around what that meant for
Yeah.
users. And then we've also worked with photographers where they've basically given up their rights at a certain level within a contract. So they'll sign with a firm, let's say for like a $10,000 contract, and once they hit that 10,000 limit worth of services of their photography, they then give off their copyright to those images to that company, which in real estate is hard to. It's not helpful because it's kind of like a spider web the way infringements work in real estate, because there's so many people involved. So if you're giving up your rights to a cabinetry company, those images are going to end up with stagers, home developers, manufacturers, or other wholesalers of the product, and you're not going to be able to monetize on any of that because you no longer have the copyright to those images. So typically we just say we ask that terms are clear of the usage. So if the image is intended to be used only by the one party that you're licensing it to, that is made clear. And specifically third-party redistribution rights, people don't always include that term. So you should be clear as to whether you allow third-party redistribution and who those third parties are. You were mentioning earlier that I think, Jay, you were saying that you allow it as part of your contract, the redistribution to specific suppliers. Having that listed in the contract is great, because that way if somebody else gets it from one of those third parties, you can still pursue that infringer. But if that was never clear, that you didn't allow third party distribution, it can get out to somebody. And then they didn't do it with malintent or out of bad faith, and that can damage your relationship with your initial client, who also didn't know that they weren't supposed to share the images. And we've had photographers have to assess, do I want to go after this infringement and ruin my relationship with this architecture firm or this builder, or do I let this one slide as a learning lesson and then become more clear with my terms and my discussion with them? So I think that's one of the bigger ones, is that third party redistribution.
And to answer that for you, how I do that on my contract is simply this. I have the initial licensee, and then everybody that they bring on board to help lower their cost, they are specifically named in the contract for their use only. And I'm sure that there's stuff out on the web right now that somebody scarfed off of one of my clients, but at the same time, I'm not going to beat a good client up because it inadvertently happened either. So,
Jay, do you have every party involved sign a separate contract, or sign the same contract and get separate signatures?
Yes, same contract, separate signatures. Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody knows up front what's going to happen, and we go with it from there. So.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lazy. I like it that way because it's just less paperwork for me too. So
why not? No, it's time is money.
Time is money, and I can make more money shooting than I can. Well, actually, I can make more money just sitting here sending out links to a website than I can anything else. But so yeah, but that's how I do it.
Great. I think we're going to wrap up here. Thank you all for participating today. I want to thank you for joining us as our guest today. It was very helpful to have your information and expertise on this.
Thank you.
I loved being here as well. It's nice to see the faces of our photographers every once in a while, rather than just emails and their photography.
Right. Yes. Yes. And by the way, this is especially kind of Awana because she's in Berlin. And so
Oh, wow.
this is evening for her.
It's no problem.
And so I appreciate it. So we're going to wrap up here. Again, thanks to everyone. We'll send you an announcement for next month's meeting, and as always, input for topics is welcome. After I stop this recording, we can hang around and chat if you'd like afterward here for a little bit. And this broadcast will be available sometime within the next week or so on all the podcast channels as well as on YouTube. So again, thank you, and we'll see you again next time.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.